Now that I've talked to you guys about my worst dating stories, it's time to talk about my top 3 best ones ever. I am low-key a hopeless romantic. I love a good romance story. It just makes your heart all warm and fuzzy. But sometimes I actually can't believe that those instances happen to me. It's time to talk about the top 3 dating stories. So, for the sake of everyone's privacy, these names have been altered to protect the identity of those that shared this moment with me. Dating story number 3 is one that I am going to call Jimmy John. Jimmy John is a classic story of boy likes girl, yet girl wants nothing to do with boy in any capacity. One thing about Jimmy that I need everyone to know was this was the most persistent individual I had ever met. So persistent, at times I was really annoyed and turned off by it. But this is how it actually changed my mind. Jimmy decided to ask me to a gala. Mind you, for all the ladies that are watching, if a man calls you 2 hours before the gala starts, what do? You panic. However, in this instance, it's not what happened. So I got a call on Saturday from Jimmy. He asked, "Hey Tazz, what are you doing tonight?" I'm kind of just hanging out with my family. No real big plans. What's up? He was like, "Well, I have an extra ticket to one of the biggest galas here in Boise. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sign me up. I love a good gala." I asked him, I was like, "Well, what time does it start?" And he said, "Well, 6 o'clock. And I looked down at my time and I'm like, or my watch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's in 2 hours. I go from Eagle to Boise in 45 minutes. I hit some traffic, get ready in record time. And of course, somehow I have this emergency gala dress just hanging in my closet that I decided to wear. I get ready, get picture perfect, go to the gala, have a great night. Hung out with Jimmy, went around, met with everyone that I knew. It was a good night. Just good food, free alcohol, free oysters. What kind of girl can complain to that? At the end of the night, a bunch of us actually decided to go to Brickyard. So we go to Brickyard, and it's about 12:30 at this point. I'm done. My friends actually know that I'm kind of checking out mentally. I'm tired. I'm like an old woman sometimes. Jimmy's like, "Hey, let's go to Jimmy John's and get you out of here." I'm like, "Okay, thank goodness. I could use a sandwich, even though I had a 7-course meal at the gala. This girl can eat." So we get to Jimmy John's. I order a sandwich. I'm sitting down, completely sober, mind you, eating my sandwich, watching all the drunk people walk by. All of a sudden, Jimmy looks at me and says, "You know what, Tazz? I gotta lay it all out there." Okay, lay it out there. He just looked at me so serious, so gently, and said, "You are the most incredible woman I've ever met. I've never met anyone so brave, so strong, so likable, so ambitious, that it's amazing that you can actually do that." And for every woman, that is what a man should tell you. I wish that you, anyone watching this right now, can actually feel like I felt in that moment, because I just started crying. Tears of joy are just running down my face, and eating a sandwich and just feeling so validated that some man can actually tell me something that I tell myself every single day. And I just remember in that moment feeling so thankful that someone can actually see me the same way I've seen myself for so long. So for any woman watching, make sure you get a Jimmy John in your life. So dating story number 2 is with someone who I'm going to call Bambi. I was leaving the gym at 7:30 one morning. It was in the middle of winter, was ending, so it was early spring. I was leaving the gym at 7:30. At that time, it's super dark here. The sun doesn't come up until about 8:30, so it's pitch black. I'm leaving the gym a little frustrated because things are kind of going wrong in my business. My content is getting called out. You name it. People are just complaining. And it's not the way you really want to start off the morning. Where my gym is in the city of Boise. It's not like in a rural outskirt part. It's in the city. So I pull out of the gym and I start going down a main road. And as I'm driving, all of a sudden, a herd of deer fly out in front of my car. And I hit one. I literally hit a deer. And this herd of deer just keeps going, and I'm sitting there with my hands at 10 and 2 like, oh my gosh. I really don't know what I'm doing at this point. I call my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I just hit a deer. And he's like, you just hit a deer? Like, where are you? I was like, I'm in the middle of town. I don't know what's happening. My life is currently in shambles. Like, Dad, please send help. I don't know what to do. So he's like, okay, what you need to do is you need to pull over and call Boise non-emergency. So I start to pull into the nearest parking lot. And as I'm pulling in, I notice a car following me in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did I create a bigger accident? Like, did I hit someone? Did I rear end someone? Like, what else can go wrong? Get out of the car, assess the damage. My entire front bumper is just shattered. There's deer hair still in it. It's just cracked to pieces. I'm like, crap. Then I go over to the sidewalk and see this deer struggling to get up because it was in severe pain, for lack of better terms. It just wasn't in good shape. I hit it pretty well. And I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad, like, this is not okay. This is not okay. And so I'm on the phone. As I'm going back to my car that had followed me parks, and a head pops out. And this guy just asked me like, hey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, but the deer's not. I thought that was funny. And he asked like, well, are you in high school? And at this moment, I look at this man and I go, Dad, I'm gonna have to call you right back. Hang up. At that moment, what I really wanted to tell that dude was like, dude, do I look like I'm in high school? Like, what kind of insult is that? Like, hello, I'm a grown woman. But instead, I decided to get off the phone with my father and say, nope, sorry, sir. Like, I'm 28 years old and I don't know what to do right now. He tells me, he's like, all right, what you're gonna wanna do is you wanna call Boise non-emergency, tell them you hit a deer, tell them to get Fish and Game to come out and put the deer down. So, of course, I take directions from this random stranger and I start Googling Boise non-emergency, make the phone call, get on the phone, I'm like, hi, my name's Tazz. I just hit a deer in town, like, please send help. So, get off the phone with them. This guy is like, okay, now what you need to do is you need to file the police report before you talk to insurance, because insurance might reference the claim. Then he proceeds to counsel me and tell me that, okay, when you give your police report, you're gonna wanna make sure that you tell them that it was dark outside, you were obeying the speed limit, your hands were at 10 and 2, in no way were you texting and driving, and most importantly, the deer came out of nowhere. And I just stood there like nodding like, okay dude, like whatever you say. So we're standing out there for about 10 minutes, kind of looking around, I don't know what to do. So I start to get in my car, and he asked me, he's like, do you want to just wait in mine? And of course, you know, contrary to what my parents tell me all the time when I was a child, to not get into strangers' cars, I decided to get in his car. So sitting around, get in, and I'm like, so where are you from? What do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a lawyer. Took on a case that got special interest from the federal government, and now I'm working in Boise. Oh, like, what'd you do up in Coeur d'Alene? I put a man on death row. And my face is just like, all right, like this isn't weird at all. And then he proceeds to keep going with conversation and says, well, what do you do? I am a realtor that makes YouTube videos. Like, I'm not impressive at all compared to you, sir. And about 15 minutes in, kind of looking at this guy and I'm like, wow, I'm not too upset that I hit this deer right now. So we started chatting, and of course I had my hair up in a ponytail. I decided to let it out a little bit, trying to bat my eyes real cute, flip my hair around, just trying to make the moves a little bit. After an hour, I'm like, dude, you have to go back to work. The cops aren't showing up. I don't know what's happening. So I asked for his number because I'm like, honestly, I just want to give insurance a witness if it happens. He was like, yeah, totally fine. I'll gladly be your witness. I was like, cool. Leave him. And I was like, hey, nice to meet you. He's like, great meeting you too. See you around. So I go to physically file a police report, go to get my insurance stuff taken care of, get it all wrapped up. And at that day, I was like, I'm not working. My day has already been shut. It's only 11, and there's been too much chaos today. So I sent him a text. I said, hey, Bambi, like, thank you so much for chatting with me. I gave insurance your number. Like, thanks for being a good Samaritan. He's like, hey, no problem. Did you decide to work today? And I said, no, but if you ever want to grab a drink, like, let me know. You know, kind of baiting him, like, maybe he will. Maybe he was interested in me. Maybe he wasn't. He was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's go to Barbacoa tonight for happy hour. Oh my gosh, like, this guy wants to take me out to Barbacoa? Like, sign me up. So, of course, at this point, I like, you know, he saw me at my lowest, just looking like a high schooler, obviously, in sweats, like, I'ma do it up real good. I make magic happen. I paint my face like Picasso, do my hair like there's no tomorrow, and I step out looking real nice, and I knew it. I was like, dang, who am I right now? Going from sweats to jeans.
Jeans! Like, that's so, like, amazing.
Okay, so I get to Barbacoa early because it's always slammed. So I get there early, go to the taco bar, and I'm waiting. He gets there at 5:15, can't find me, gives me a call. It's like, hey, where are you sitting? And I was like, hey, you know, I'm like around the corner. All you have to do is walk underneath the wine cellar and flip a right. I'll be right there. Hang up the phone. I kind of look to make sure like I grab his attention, and my jaw drops. As he's rounding the corner, I take a look at this man and I'm like, oh my goodness, sign me up. So he rocks the corner. He just comes in like fully suited like a lawyer. And for all my women that know what I'm talking about, I was like, oh my gosh, this man is freaking gorgeous. And he just starts walking to me. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I hope I'm cute. And he sits down. He was like, hey, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing great. So long story super short, date was great. That ended up not working out for reasons that to this day I still don't even know, but I think it's a really cool story. So dating story number 1, I'm gonna call Sleepless in Seattle. Before I went to Vietnam and just had the best month of my life, essentially, I decided to make a couple of stops. And in one of those stops, I decided to meet up with someone that I had met on Instagram. I didn't know meeting people on Instagram was a thing. How that kind of came about was Seattle and I had a lot of mutual friends. Kind of was like, hey, like, I'm actually gonna be in your area. Let's meet up before I head out of the country. We went out for a drink. It was nice, it was fun. It was actually like a really good conversation. I was like, this guy is actually really dope, like super freaking cool. And I was like, he's cute, he's nice, like have a lot of similar interests, like he's a good dude. But of course I was going out of the country at that point, and I was like, well, obviously nothing's gonna happen. So I go to Vietnam, kind of kept in contact, nothing serious. During my Vietnam trip, I had the travel bug so bad, point where I almost didn't want to come home. My parents would have killed me if I did that. During Vietnam, I reached out to some of my friends in Seattle. I was like, hey, like, there's a music concert actually happening at the end of this month. I don't want to go home. Like, are you guys cool if I came out and just went? Do any of you guys want to go? My buddy Richard was like, yeah, let's totally do it. I was like, great. So I book a flight to Seattle, get ready for this music concert, and just try to extend my vacation. Come back to Boise, stay one day in Boise to get my lashes fixed and my hair done because I looked like I came out of the jungle, literally. And I go to Seattle. And as I get there, I'm telling Richard, like, yeah, actually there's this guy who might be here too. I met him before I came to Seattle. It was really cool. He's really sweet. Like, maybe we'll run into him, maybe we won't. Saturday was the day that I went to the music festival. We went with a bunch of people and got to a point where we're just like, you know what, honestly, like, I want to see this artist play, and I kind of just don't really want to watch T-Pain. So we took out a coin, and I was like, all right, heads, we stay here, tails, we go to line up for the artist we want to see. Flips the coin, lands on tails, and I'm like, all right, let's go line up. We go to the stage the artist is about to play on, and kind of standing there, we can't see very well, and I was like, all right, Richard, like, we need to get higher up. We make our way through the crowd. We get up pretty darn close in comparison to where we actually were standing. We're getting ready, it's getting excited, the crowd's starting to feel it. And then all of a sudden the lights go down, the music starts playing, and me and my buddy Richard are like, yeah, it's dope. As I'm like dancing around, I look over to my left, and I see this familiar face looking back at me like, I And I'm like looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Seattle. And he looks at me, I look at him, and I'm like, I should go say hi. Hey, like, what's up? What are you doing here? This is crazy seeing you here. We meet each other's friends, we have a good time, and that weekend was one of the best weekends I've ever had. It was one of the funnest weekends I've ever had because it was a good group of people. I was with this really hot guy, just exploring Seattle, and I just remember that in that moment was one of the best times I had ever felt. I felt so good about myself. I felt so good about the energy and the people around me. And I felt so alive that weekend was just something that I cherish so much, especially since I've been very open and honest with how last year prior to Vietnam was just a wreck for me personally. Having that moment, having that weekend in Seattle was probably something that I will always remember. Long story short, just wasn't a good fit. So that's the bummer part, but it is still one of my favorite stories. And it's one of my favorite stories because for those of you who are watching, there's times when you go through low points because you need to appreciate the high points, and that is definitely a high point. A lot of these stories were actually high points.
You say the outro and she'll mouth it.
Why am I mouthing it?
It's funny.
Yeah, do it.
So if you like this week's episode...
What are you doing after hits?
So if you like this week's episode, please like and subscribe. So if you like this week's episode, make sure to like and subscribe because new episodes...
To my channel.
If you like this week's episode, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel because new episodes are released every Thursday. I'm just Tazz, and that's just it.